record on this computer. That way I can upload it whenever we get all finished. Since it's in camera view, I have to show y'all this. Look how pretty this notebook is. I mean, how can you not feel joy when you see this little notebook?
That is cute.
And it says, create a life you love. It's probably hard to read because it's metallic.
Oh,
Create a life that you love. And then another page says,
is it a journal?
it is, focus on the good. So the first part where it says create a life you love, it's all like lines. I don't know if y'all can see that. The lighting is weird in here. And then the next section that says focus on the good is like graph paper. I don't know if you can see that either. And then the last section says dream big. And it's just blank paper, which I thought all the sheets looked blank on that computer screen. But I just thought that was so pretty. The sunshine, and then it has this little thing that comes up from the bottom. So whenever you mark your spot, it comes up from the bottom and then hangs over like a bookmark.
That's good.
It just doesn't take a whole lot to make me happy, y'all.
That's okay.
Now, I don't know what I'm going to write in it. I'll probably just leave it blank. But that's okay. But anyway, I brought it in here because it just made me so happy to look at. So I just laid it right there. I think I brought my calendar in here, like the thing that has real information on it. No, just a blank journal. All right, let's get started. Warming up our bodies, getting ready for some movement. I'll share with y'all that this morning I was at the gym and I lift weights 4 times a week, and Tuesdays are one of my days that I lift weights. And there's so many things that translate from Tai Chi to lifting weights, from Tai Chi to just walking around in the world. And so I don't want us to ever miss the lessons that we learn in Tai Chi and how we can go out there and apply it in the way we hold our bodies. So, our principles guide us in Tai Chi. And those principles is something I talk about every week. Is I always start with upright posture. To me, that's just the first place to start, to make sure that I'm holding my body in a way that's over top of my hips, to allow my hips and my legs to hold my body upright. As soon as I start leaning forward or side to side or even back, I don't think that's a natural way to lean. But anytime I start leaning, that puts me towards falling, even if I never fall. So to practice that upright posture wherever you are, no matter what you're doing, is so important. And I was thinking about that this morning. I did this exercise where it's on cables, and I held this handle and I was pushing it down. Okay, I was pushing it down. Well, what did I do? I said, okay, upright posture, make sure there's no tension in my shoulders. I have my feet shoulder width apart so that, my stance is widened and my weight is on both feet or legs. And I have a soft bend in my knees. Does that sound familiar? That's what we do every class in Tai Chi. And so I had that, everything. I went through all the things we even talk about in Tai Chi. I engaged my core muscles. That probably sounds familiar too. We talk about that in Waving Hands and Clouds, and we'll talk about it again today. And then, so I was ready then to then push that down. So my body was nice, stable stance, So here I can isolate the muscles in those arms to be able to work what I was intending to work. If I was all just loosey-goosey and not standing in a stable way, then I might have strained a muscle that wasn't intended to work. So that crossed my mind this morning, is like, hey, look, I'm doing all the Tai Chi things, even in weightlifting. So we do the Tai Chi things no matter what we're doing, and we're holding our body in a way that we're using our muscles, we're being strong in the way we hold our bodies, and then we're less likely to fall. All right, so get in that nice stable stance. Check and make sure you're not having any tension. It kind of looks like I don't have arms today. It looks like my arms disappear and then my hands reappear, but my shirt's blending in with the background. Don't be fooled, I really have an arm. Okay, so we're gonna start with our neck. We're gonna bring those hands up, pull them towards our chin and chest, push away from our body, and follow those hands all the way down. Hands up towards our chin and chest, push away, and follow those hands all the way down. Feeling a little stretch in the back of our neck. Breathing at our own pace. One more time. Our other neck exercise, we bring one hand to our hip and we follow this hand as we look towards the shoulder, bringing it back to the front, switching and looking towards that other shoulder. You don't have to go as far as you can go. Just go until you feel a slight stretch. Come back to center. I like to make this stretch a little bit more by, come closer. So here, yes, I'm following that hand. And when I follow that hand, that it stretches the side of my neck. When I follow the other hand, it'll stretch this side of my neck. But while taking that hand to the side, if I take this opposite shoulder and pull it back just slightly, then I can feel even more stretch in my chest, probably in my upper back, and that just makes that stretch more. Do you have to do it? No. But I like to give you some options to work with and play with, and know that you can grow this movement into more of an experience for your body. Next is for our shoulders. We have our hands on the side of our legs and we're going to roll those shoulders forward. Small circles, just warming up these shoulders. We're not doing too much. And rolling back. Continue to breathe as you do this movement. I think I'm having memories of last week and my fighting to talk, and it feels so good to be able to talk just like myself, loud. And here we go. Pull our hands up and push those hands down. Inhale up, exhale down. Thinking about gentle resistance as if we're pushing through water. Again, just giving you some options. And I don't know if you have ever practiced some positive affirmations or just a reminder of, well, it's a reminder, but an appreciation for negative and positive. So we, in our Tai Chi, specifically on our shirt, we have a yin and yang, right? So this represents good and bad, positive, negative, you know, the opposites, right? And so this little circle in each is, and excuse me if I get it backwards, but it's the good that's in the bad and the bad that's in the good, right? So it's always good and bad. We always have good and bad going on. And when we acknowledge anything bad or negative, then we acknowledge it and then push it down or let it go. We acknowledge and appreciate the good things. So here as we come up, it's like we're gathering good. And as we push down, we can push and get rid of any like negativity or bad things. Because, you know, we always have all these things going in and out of our heads. And so that's a movement where we can use that kind of positive affirmation where we say those good things and then we push away those bad, ugly, negative things that maybe we say to ourselves or maybe we're experiencing. So see, it's kind of a movement that's symbolic of gathering good and pushing away bad. So it starts by being a shoulder warm up, and it does just that. Or it can be a practice in gentle resistance where we're engaging muscle that we don't necessarily have to engage with that movement. And then it can be a little bit more internal experience, positive and negative. Gathering and pushing away. So you can think about that movement in different ways too. Next is for our spine. So let's grab our ball. We're going to separate heavens and earth. Oh gosh, got to pop up. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, some reason my email was opened up, so everything was coming through on my email. All right, here we go. So here's our ball. We're going to separate heavens and earth. We're going to stretch our spine vertically. The hand that's on top pushes down towards the ground, leaving that soft bend. The other follows the spine up, turns, and pushes towards the ceiling. Again, keeping that soft bend. Stretching that spine. Come to your ball. Inhale and exhale as you separate. Reminding yourself not to fully extend your arms to keep that soft bend. It's not an arm stretch, it's a spine stretch. And so that's a challenge to learn this movement. I think we're used to just really stretching our arms out when we get out of bed and we're just, and we do lock out those arms and it's a spinal stretch and it becomes an arm stretch all the way. And it's a nice movement, but in Tai Chi, this movement is intended to just isolate the stretch of our spine. Now let's come back to our ball and take our ball side to side, switching our hands. The hand on top tells us our direction. Make sure you're breathing. Just breathe at your own pace. Stay within your frame, so you're not going as far as you can go. This is simply a spinal warm-up, vertical or horizontal spinal warm-up. Also, this movement is the same one that we do, a similar one that we do in waving hands and clouds. Back to center. Now to our lower body. So this is where it gets complicated if we have fear of falling or if we have balance issues. This is where we want to make sure we have something to rely on, whether it be a chair, a table. You know, I have my wall here. or if you just need to stay seated. So those first movements for our neck, shoulders, and spine can easily be done seated because there's no leg movement. These movements become challenging because we're shifting weight from leg to leg. I always encourage you to push yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone, not so far that you're truly going to fall, but we grow by challenging ourselves. So if you just want to hold on to your chair or whatever stable item you have, skip the arm movements and challenge yourself to just shift weight. You're going to get more out of that than if you sit down and push your feet into the floor. But if all you can do at this time is sit down and push your feet into the floor, then that's a great start. So we're going to do our hips first. And the first thing we do is shift weight to one leg. We tap our heel forward and our hands come back. So that's like a counterbalance. So I'm here. I'm going to pause in the middle and then put my hands forward and my toe goes back. And my toe is back at an angle like a kickstand. Back to center. Shift to the other leg. Heel forward, hands back. Notice this time I'm going from leg to leg. Now last week I did 3 at a time on each leg. And that is a practice in endurance. This gives us more experience shifting weight. And it gives that stabilizer leg a little bit of a break, which is not a bad thing. Shift. So it's hard. That leg will start screaming at you. Like, you almost done, ma'am. I think you did 3. Surely you're on 4 now. That's usually when my legs start screaming, as if I've done 4 instead of 3. Let's do 1 more on each side, which usually means I have no idea how many I've done. So 1 more should wrap us up. I'll just be telling y'all all my secrets, don't I? Now let's shift our weight side to side. So shift, keeping our body upright. Our hands are going with the weight shift and staying within our frame. So we're not leaning way over here. Remember, leaning is going towards falling. And then tap that foot out. Switch, shift, lift and tap. Bring it back, shift, lift and tap. And if you want to skip that lift and tap, that's fine. That's a really brave movement to trust that when you lift that foot, that other leg is going to be okay to hold you. So I acknowledge that this is a difficult movement when it comes to balance. But there's no doubt that even if we're skipping this hand movement and holding on to our chair, so here's my invisible chair, shifting the weight, even if I don't lift and tap that foot out, shifting the weight, so there's no weight left on this foot, shifting the weight. That is how our muscles get stronger. And when we do it in a slow pace, it engages our muscle differently than if we just go back and forth. It's more challenging to slow down and slow down. It challenges those muscles and help get them stronger. So there's places that you can, or ways that you can do that movement differently and hopefully build yourself up, if you're not already there, to that lift and tap in that foot. Lift and tap. All right. Now for our knees, we have our loose fist. We're going to shift our weight, lift, tap our toe out, and punch that opposite hand out. Bring it back, shift, lift, tap, and punch. So you're in control how high you tap that toe. You can pretend there's a cup out there and you're tapping on top of it. If you want to challenge yourself to have your foot a little bit higher. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate anything higher than that, but you can if you want to. That really challenges that. I don't suggest putting an actual cup on the floor and trying to tap on top of it, because you'll be so focused on that cup that you'll lose your balance. Ask me how I know, because I did it. I was just going to see what it was like if I actually put a cup out there to tap on top of. So in this case, I think imaginary just seems to work better. And then, you know, one foot may be comfortable going a little bit higher. So your cup may be a little higher on the right foot or the left. So just imagine away, y'all. Now let's step out. Back up a little bit. So it's a small step, shift, step. We're going to shift to that front leg, keeping both feet flat on the floor, punching out the opposite hand. Bring it back, feet side by side, shift, step, shift and punch, bring it back, side by side. So you may play with the amount of space that you step out. So if you step really small, I'm still at a staggered stance. That was a really small step. Keeping both feet flat on the floor, when I shift weight to that front foot, I can still keep a soft bend in my back leg. If I step a little further out, when I go to shift the weight, you see that back leg, it kind of locks or goes straight. That's not a problem, but it is a problem if your leg actually locks and you can't unlock it. So if that's happening to you, make your step really tiny, still in a staggered stance, and then shift the weight, and you can still keep that soft bend in your knee. And with all of these movements, you can play around with foot placement and see where you feel most comfortable. I mean, we know we're not, our feet directly side by side, touching each other. That's never going to feel stable. And if we're way far out, it's not going to feel stable because we have a hard time moving. So it's somewhere in between, and it's different for everybody based on a lot of things. I think in my case, it has to do with how short I am. So the reason why I say that is I was in a class and our instructor was really tall. And so her legs are a lot longer than mine. And I was trying to copy like her exact spacing of her feet. And I was wearing myself out. And then it hit me, we're different. Like, we don't need to copy the exact space. We want to think about where we feel most stable. And sometimes that's just a matter of you practicing. Skip something, skip the hand movements, and just simply step. Step in a little closer. What feels most stable? Does it feel stable when you go straight forward? Or does it feel more stable if you step out a little bit? Play around with the spacing of your movements, and your body will create a memory for it. And when you're out in the world and you're just moving, then you automatically step and move in a way that's most stable for you. It always goes back to practicing. All right, and by practicing, it doesn't mean you better be practicing waving hands in clouds. No, just practice moving your body and learn what feels stable for you. All right, for our ankles, shift to one foot and heel toe. So we're rocking that foot, heel toe. Bring the foot back, shift the weight, heel toe. Help circulation in your legs and your ankles. Bring it back, shift, and now go big toe, little toe. And finally, big or little toe, big toe, side to side. Give yourself a little shake. So those are our warm-up stretches that we do for all our major joints in our Tai Chi. So just to give you an extra stretch, thinking about our wrists, if you sit in a chair, maybe your chair has arms, maybe you put your arm on a table with your wrist hanging off. If you'll bend or take your hand down, this is my table, and then bring your hand up. You feel that stretch in your wrist? And it may look different for you based on the flexibility of your wrist. And of course, you'd want to do the other hand. But having it, being able to relax, the arm relax on a table or an armchair so that you can just focus on that wrist movement. That's one stretch for your wrist. Also, if you put your hands out forward, your hands touching all the way to your palm. Palm, that's your palm, right? Yeah, palm. Okay. And if you bring your hands straight back, keeping your palms together and come back as far as you feel comfortable, but you should feel a stretch right there in your wrist. So see how my elbow stayed up? If I lean forward, you can kind of see a W. So that's a really good stretch of your wrist. So sometimes we get stiff in our wrist, and I don't really understand why we don't have warm-up stretches for our wrist in Tai Chi, but we don't. So for our fingers, here's one for our fingers where we have our loose fist. We come up with bent fingers. We open our hands and then spread our fingers. So we come back, bend, loose fist. Come up, all the way, open. Close, bend, loose fist, bend, up, open. The wording changes every time I do it. But you get the idea. So it's just working those fingers. And I love that movement right there where we really stretch those fingers. We get arthritis in our wrist and our hands so easily as we get older. And arthritis, osteoarthritis, wear and tear on our joints. Now, there are lots of other types of arthritis, but the wear and tear on our joints is real, and that comes with age because we've been around longer. We've used our bodies more. And if you're a person who works with their hands a lot, you're more likely to have arthritis in your hands. So just using those fingers, stretching those hands, the wrist here, the fake piano where you just do that. I don't know what kind of song that would be, but I like to pretend it's beautiful. Moving the joints can be helpful for you. All right, are we ready for our basic 6? Remember, we've learned commencement, open and close, single whip, waving hands and clouds. So we're going to go over those. Remember, commencement is a step forward. It's we lead with our left foot. So we shift right, step left, shift left, right foot forward. Our hands start out at our sides. They face each other the whole time as they come up, down, in, or think about finishing the U, come up, out, and back in. And then, of course, open and close. Connecting the feet and the hands, we bring our hands up. As we come down, we shift right, step left, finish the U. Out as you shift left, right foot forward, hands come back, open and close. So I know that's a lot going on. So think about splitting that movement up to where you just think about hands up, down, shift right. So you get a feeling for the hand movement and the weight shift connection. Up, down, shift right. So just practice that one thing and then add on until you complete the movement. Open, close. Probably our favorite movement because it's just a breath, open and close. Next is single whip. We do it to the right first. We shift left, step out right, adjust weight. And that's another moment where where you can play around with foot placement and what feels most comfortable for you. I know sometimes I step out and I'm like, well, that's kind of a severe angle, sis. So let's come off that angle a little bit. So play, and when I talk to myself, that's what I call myself, sis. So play around with your footwork or with your foot placement in our single whip too. But when you do go at that angle, it naturally turns your body at the angle. It follows that foot. So you're turn and then you push out, turn your hands away from you and separate your hands, eyes following your left hand, but don't forget about your right. Make sure you're separating your hands. If you forget about your right hand and only moving your left, then you're missing out on that full stretch of your chest. And so you can do it purposely and experience it, what it feels like, and then purposely do it correct and see what that feels like. But it's out of sight, out of mind, so it's easy to forget about that right hand, but don't. And separate. The rule in our single whips is whatever leg is stepped out, our eyes follow the opposite hand. So if you ever put those hands out and you're ready to follow a hand and you're like, which one do I follow? Then check which foot is stepped out and go the opposite. So that's a moment of counterbalance. We do that a lot, the opposite leg to the opposite hand. That's our single whip. Now, when I transition from single whip to waving hands and clouds, of course, this is our waving hands and clouds movement. I kind of pretend my hands or my eyes have superpowers. So I'm watching this hand and I'm telling that hand to stay right there while I bring this hand and foot back in to get ready for waving hands and clouds. So that's that transition movement. Let me step away from that wall a little bit. So single whip, shift left, step right, adjust the weight, push, turn, separate, eyes follow that left hand, shift left, right foot, right hand back. Now we're ready for waving hands and clouds. So first two things is step and switch. So I'm going to step and switch my hands. Now I turn. Now I'm going to shift right. Step and switch. Turn. Shift. 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 Step and switch. Turn. Now we're going to come to the center for open and close. So I put my hands beside or facing each other, pull to the front, and open and close. So don't get overwhelmed. I know that it's a lot going on at once. This is why I always have the words up here on the wall. I never take this poster down to remind you of what's next. It's right here in front of me too. Step, switch, turn, shift. I can I like to combine these two movements at the same time to where I step and I switch. Then I like to turn and then shift. You can turn and shift, and shift at the same time, step and switch, turn and shift at the same time, step and switch, turn and shift at the same time, step and switch. See how many choices you have. I don't want you to be overwhelmed by that, but I want you to feel like you have permission to do what works best for you. And when I say this, it works best for me to split up, turn, and shift, let me tell you why. Because when I turn and all I have to worry about is turn, then I can really engage the muscle in my core. And I've said this before about a straw that's sticking out my belly button, and I'm taking that straw from pointing to that corner and pushing it to pointing to the other corner. And if I'm focusing on that straw, if I'm focusing on tightening the muscles in my core to push to the side, then I can't really focus on also shifting my weight. I don't feel as balanced if I try to do both at the same time. There's too much going on. I can't really isolate and concentrate that muscle as I turn if I'm also shifting the weight. So you can experience that, shifting the weight as I turn. Maybe you don't want to engage those muscles. You know, that's part of that engaging our dantian. All of our energy comes from this section of our bodies around our belly button. And when we engage our dantian, when we engage that core, we increase the life energy in our bodies. We'll be just fine if we don't do that. But that's one way to do this movement. Now, if you're seated, it's let me get my chair. It's kind of an easier way to experience that, because then you don't have to worry about what's going on with weight, holding your weight. So here, even when I sit down, when I do Tai Chi seated, my feet are about shoulder width or hip width apart. I have an upright posture and I have no tension in my shoulders. So even if you're seated, you still have a nice stable stance. I generally scooch up on my chair, not on the edge to where my chair will flip, but I'm not sit back in my chair. I'm fully engaging my muscles in the experience of Tai Chi. All chairs are different based on their height. So when I do waving hands in clouds, seated, then I can really push with those core muscles in a way that I don't when I'm standing doing the movement. So let me turn back around. So here I have one hand down by my hip, the other hand cross body. The hand that's on top, which is this hand right here, that tells me the direction of my turn. So I turn and now switch. So this hand comes down and this hand comes up. Turn, switch, turn. So even if you have no problems with balance, doing this movement seated can help make your core muscles stronger. Because here you don't have to worry about holding your weight with your legs. That chair's got you. Now you just focus on tightening those muscles and letting those muscles turn you side to side. Another challenge is being able to breathe and keep those muscles tight. So I think sometimes we tighten up our muscles and we think that means we can't breathe. So side to side, guided with our dantian or our belly button, and breathe. So that led me to inhaling as I switched and taking my time switching, and exhaling as I turned, inhaling as I switched, and exhaling as I turned. So this is waving hands in clouds, but taking the movement out completely to really focus on that core. That's one way you can practice waving hands in clouds, seated, and you get a different experience out of it. All right, well, let's say your problem is you just feel a little bit overwhelmed with life. You just need a moment to be easy and just to breathe. Well, you can do this circular motion just like in Karate Kid, the wax on, wax off, where you here and here. So I'm not really tightening my core muscles any more than what I just need to do for them to stay upright. I don't have that straw poking out of my belly button, guiding it from corner to corner. I'm focusing on the circular movement of my hands. So here's the circle across, see the circles? It's like this without the turn. My hand goes up, around, down. Here. You can do this seated or standing. So notice I'm not stepping, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just simply breathing at my own pace at no particular moment and enjoying that nice, fluid, smooth movement of my hands. Now that's relaxing, isn't it? So if you ever feel overwhelmed and you just want to breathe and go side to side, moving these hands in that circle. So that's a different way to experience waving hands in clouds. You can add the step. I know I've told y'all where one of my students, she was around 20 years old. She was in college and she would come with her grandmother to class. And so she started using waving hands in clouds as a way to relax her when she felt overwhelmed. So you can wave hands in clouds until you hit a wall. I'm breathing at my own pace. Kind of like I'm lost in time. It doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter if I've done 25 or 3. I'm not worried about numbers here. I'm just lost in the slow, smooth, and continuous nature of that movement. I hit the wall and now I go to the other side. Again, not worrying about numbers. Of course, I do have my upright posture. I am practicing weight transfer, but the slow, smooth, and continuous of this movement is more of my focus here. Or mental quietness, right? If I were in a quiet room, come to center, open and close. And I say all of those things to give you permission to use your Tai Chi movements as you need them. So it's not always about, I have to do them all in a certain order. You know, sit down and just open and close. Inhale and exhale. And don't worry about anything that was before or after. pull it out and use it as you need it. But we do learn it in a certain order. Tai Chi is movements done in a certain order. But let's do them in order from the top. And commence. Hands come up, down, shift right. Step left, hands come in and up. Shift left as they go out. Right foot forward, hands come back, open and close. Single whip. Shift left, step right, adjust the weight. Push, turn, separate, following that left hand. Shift left, bring that left or right hand, right foot, right hand back. Waving hands in clouds. Step and switch, turn, shift. 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 Step and switch, turn. Get your hands to the front and open and close. Now let's do it to the left. Single whip. Shift right, step left, adjust weight. Push, turn, separate, this time following the right hand. Shift right, bring that left foot, left hand back. Waving hands in clouds. Step and switch, or turn, shift. Step and switch, 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 turn. Bring it to center and open and close. Close it out. Basic 6. Let's do it again. This time I'll just call out the names of the movement. Start over here just a little bit. Here we go and commence. Open, close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open, close. Single whip.
Tell her I'll call her back,
Hands
Robert.
in clouds.
Yeah.
Close. Close it out. Anybody have any questions? Okay, good deal. As a reminder about the way we step, when we step in Tai Chi, we step empty. And what that means is we put our foot in the place it's going, but we don't immediately give it weight. So it's an empty step. There's a slight pause. Then we shift the weight. And the purpose of that is kind of a test of the foot placement. So let's say we placed that foot out there and we realized there was a Lego underneath where we placed our foot. If we have not committed weight immediately to that foot, we can pick that foot back up and move it back. If we go ahead and shift weight as soon as we put that foot down, then man, we have stepped on a Lego. And so it's a mind thing to remind ourselves to step, pause, and I know sometimes I'll see myself kind of do a glitch, then a shift. I almost make a movement with my hands to kind of appreciate or give respect to that empty step, and then shift the weight. So all the steps we take in Tai Chi are empty, then we give it weight. Empty, then we give it weight. So all of them. Just keep that in mind. And it's a very short time, but it's there. It's a challenge whenever we talk about our movement control being continuous. So, I say slow, smooth, continuous. So when we think continuous, it doesn't lend itself to the empty step. I mean, continuous, I would put it there and keep moving. That's continuous. So I've caught myself falling into trying to make these really beautiful, nice, smooth, continuous movements and realized I wasn't doing an empty step. So I had to back up and say, all right, we're going to give it a little bit of a pause. So when we do commencement, there's that step. I finish that movement. Now give it weight. Bring it back. Then when I pull those hands back, that's when I get to that other foot. So it's empty there for a few seconds. Done. Shift. Step empty. Finish. Now give it weight. Step empty. Now give it weight. Open. Close. Shift. Step empty. Adjust the weight. Push. So I always verbalize that. Step. Hold on. Shift. Step. Push. Turn. Separate. So I say it. Adjust the weight. So step. Shift. Adjust the weight. So by saying adjust the weight right after I step, that gave that little bit of moment for that foot to be empty, to have no weight on it. Shift, step, adjust weight. So you see that. You see when I gave it weight. When I first stepped my foot out in that single whip, my weight's all back here. Watch my body, adjust weight. So when my weight is on this foot, my body is back a little bit. When my weight becomes on both feet, my body moves over top of those legs in that staggered stance. So you can visually see when the weight is shifted. Shift, step, adjust weight. So now adjust weight means I have weight on both feet. Push, turn, separate, shift, bring this foot back, step, empty, turn. So all my weight's on this leg. This leg has no weight yet. As I turn, now I give it weight. Step, all my weight's on this leg. As I turn, now give it weight. So with waving hands and clouds, I'm standing for quite a while on one leg with weight on it. The research shows that the more able you are to hold your weight on one leg, the less likely you are to fall. So in those waving hands and clouds movements, we are walking sideways, but here weight is on one leg. I'm going to turn. Now my weight's on the other leg. I'm going to turn. Weight's on one leg. So I'm turning while weight is on one leg. It might not look like I'm standing here like this. Because I'm not. But essentially I am, because my weight is only on one leg. So waving hands and clouds gives you the practice of standing on one leg. And the more practice you have standing on one leg or having all your weight on one leg, then that's when your muscles get strong and you're less likely to fall. That's why Tai Chi works, to help keep you from falling. Is because all the times we have weight on one leg, even if we step, it's an empty step. So all the weight is still on that one leg before we transition the weight. So just to give you a reason why this works, so that when you're practicing Tai Chi, you practice it correctly because you want that out of it. You want it to help you. Now, if you're not able to shift the weight and move, like in waving hands and clouds, then stay in one place, hold a stable chair or a stable table, and shift the weight one leg, shift the weight. So get the practice. Don't even lift your feet off the floor. Just simply shift weight. That gets you stronger. The more practice you have, then you'll be able to lift that foot off the floor. So maybe you're not tapping out. Maybe you just lift the foot barely off the floor. Shift, lift it barely off the floor while you're holding that chair as your security, as your helper. So there's no shame in using a helper, none at all. We're just trying to help ourselves. We know where we are. We know where we want to be. So grow there, one small thing at a time. All right, let's cool down. Let's give ourselves, it's right at 11. I'll tell you what, I could talk all day long if y'all just stay on here. We give ourselves a nice fist massage. But I hope y'all realize how passionate I am about Tai Chi. Like, I really know how it can help you, but you have to do the work in order to get those benefits. And you have to do it correctly. And there's a lot of the times that weight transfer, it's challenging for us, but we want to find a way we can do it where we're safe. All right, gather tension. That's not how we want to live, y'all. Let's let it go. Gather, release. Gather and release. One more time. Gather and release. Big circle up and down. Inhale and exhale. We take our right fist, that represents our strength. Our left fingers together is our friendship. Our thumb in is our humility. So strength, friendship, and humility. We put those together, and in mutual respect, we say namaste. Well, thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. We're getting places, aren't we, y'all? All right, well,
sure looks like it. Sure looks like it.
I don't know where we're going, but we're going. Hey, Gwen, how far are you to Valdosta? Excuse me for not knowing my Georgia map. Is that far?
An hour and a half.
Huh?
An hour and a half.
Oh, okay, that's pretty far. Well, we're being Valdosta this weekend. My daughter has dance competition. So y'all just think boogie woogie. I know Miss Vivian, you're familiar with it. I know you're somewhat granddaughter, right? Gracie was a dancer. So you're familiar with the fun that we're getting ready to get ourselves into. But think about us this weekend in travels, and I'll report back next week that we are the winner of something. I don't know, if not attitude award.
No, winner, that's a way, that's the way to go.
That's right. If we can win the attitude award, who
Right,
cares if we
thank you.
can't dance, right? All right. Well, let me know if y'all need anything between now and then. And if not, I'll see you next time.
Okay. See you
All right.
Friday.
Love y'all.
Thank you, thank you,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
You're
Love you
welcome.
too.